So this is the third and last part of writing our media queries. And this time we're going to make the tours, the stories, and the book sections responsive. So starting with the tours, this is what it looks like right now. Now it actually doesn't look so bad, but the big problem here is that we have to actually touch it in order to rotate the card. Because on touch devices, there's no such thing as a hover. And so the only way to actually move the card is to click it. And that's not practical, right? We don't want this here to sit at the back of our card, right? So we must find a way to actually change this entire card, okay? So this will be half a rewrite of this card. And what I have in mind for this, so what I want to achieve in the end is just something like this, okay? Let me close this one here a bit. All right, so this entire card will be like this. So this is similar to what we had before, then the list, and then the part that was originally on the back will now be here at the bottom, okay? And then that 3 times, one after the other. All right, and so this way people can actually see the price and click book now if they want to. So let's go ahead and do that. And once again, we're starting at the, of course, at the 900 pixel media query, so tablet portrait. So let's open up the card. Here it is. And this time we are going to make it a bit differently, okay? Because this is like a whole rewrite of the entire thing. And so we're not just tweaking some stuff here. And so let's actually do a big media query at the end and then copy all of that in there and only change what we need to change, okay? So we put a big media query down here. So include, respond, tab, port. And now let's get this stuff here, copy it in there, and then we're gonna remove what we don't need, which is most of it, but it's still easier to do it like this than to copy all the things that we need. Okay, so select it again, just so I can indent it a bit. And so where is the end of this actually? Yeah. All right. Now we don't need any of these perspective stuff, and the position also we don't need. But what we can change is the height here, okay? Because remember we set this height here to make the front side the same size as the back side, and also to make the sides having the same height as the container, okay? But now that's no longer necessary, and so I don't want that. And so we set it to auto, okay? And so now we overwrite that 52 and set it to auto. And the same thing actually here on the side, okay? Now what's also gonna happen is that these are no longer an absolute position, okay? So they will now be relative position because we now no longer have 2 sides basically occupying the same space, okay? And so they will now be relative. And so first we will have the front side, and then after that, the back side, remember? So we don't want to change this. We don't have to change any of this, I believe. This one should move as well. We don't need to change any of this. Then the front part also doesn't need any changing. And then the back part, we don't need any of this. But what we do need is to get rid of this transform. So right now the back part is rotated 180 degrees, remember, but we don't want that. So we need to change it back to 0, right? So let's now take a look actually. And well, actually not much changed, except that the back part is completely gone. So let's take a look at why that is happening. So card side, and I see that it basically doesn't have any height. So let's see why that is happening. Well, actually the height is set to auto, so I'm not really sure what's going on here, but maybe it has to do with the fact that this card here is absolute. Let's take a look at that. Well, that's also not the reason, but I'm sure it will just work out a bit later when we continue with this, okay? So the front side here should not rotate at all when we hover it. So set it to 0. And this here stays the same because the side back should also not rotate. And so this is just as it was. So we can get rid of it. All right, and now the styling here. So the first part should actually stay the same. Okay, so I want this to stay exactly the same. So the exact same style. So very simple, just get rid of all of this. We don't want to change anything. So all of that Let's remove it. All right, now here let's set it to relative as I did before in the DevTools. And then this one here we set to 0, and we want no translate at all. And we also want the 100% width. All right, this one we didn't change, so let's get rid of it. We don't want to change these as well. Maybe the margin, but first we have to actually see it. Then the price here we don't want to change at all. And then the price value, maybe also the font size. We'll see about that. Okay, but anyway, let's take a look now, and now it should somehow appear. And yeah, so here it is. Great. So we should probably decrease this margin here. Then we should give this a padding here, and then use a clip path to make it look the same way as here. So this corner here. So this non-rectangular design, as I've been calling it. Okay, so let's start with that and remove this margin here. So the margin here, let's put it to something really small, like 3 rem. Some padding in here. So let's say padding 4 rem. And now, as I was saying, let's use a clip path here for the backside. Give it some space here so we can nicely separate it from the rest. Okay. So clip path, polygon. And how should this one look like? Well, if it starts here, okay, so it should start here. So this is the starting point. And so this time we don't start at 0, 0, because 0, 0 would be here. So in the X direction, so this way here, we still have 0, but in here we move down a little bit. Okay, so let's do that here. So 0x and maybe 15% in Y. And then the others are just the regular corners. So 100% in the X direction, 0 in the Y direction, right? And by now you're already 100% familiar with this, I'm sure. Now the other corner is 100, 100, because it's, just to remind you, this is 100 in the X direction and 100 in the Y direction, right? And now just the last part here, so that we don't cut off all of this. Okay, so in here we now have 0 again in the X direction and 100 in the Y direction. And that should do it. All right, now one thing is that, of course, here we don't have enough margin, but the bigger problem is these rounded corners that we have here. And then we also want the entire element to have a white background, okay? Plus this shadow here is now only on the front side, and it should be on the entire thing. So 3 things that we have to change now. Let's do it. So starting with the border radius, let's remove it from here, and we can put it here on this element. So basically the container element, the card element itself. Then also we want the background color to be white. Color white. So that should fix it. And now the shadow that we had before, let me see where it is. And so yeah, it was here on the side, but we no longer want it on the side, we want it on the entire card element, right? So we need to change that. So the box shadow that was here, we need to remove it, set it to none, and then put it here on the card. All right, and now just for this padding here, it should be a bit more at the top. So let's say 7 rem at the top, 4 on the right, and then 4 on all the other sides. Okay, so let's take a look at this now. And all right, that looks pretty good to me, actually. Let's try to decrease it a bit. And yeah, it continues looking great, right? Maybe we can decrease some padding here. Let's take a look. Yeah, so we have 3 rem here. So let's get rid of that. Let's actually copy it from here, since that we already have it. So, whoa, what's that? What's going on here? So I closed this accidentally. All right, so just card details. Okay, I shouldn't have done this, I guess. Would be easier to just to have written it out. So padding at the top, let's put it to 0, and then on the side only 3 rem. So how does that look like? Well, maybe 1 rem is better, but that should be it. All right. So that are the cards. Looks pretty good now, I think. And yeah, maybe just decreasing this font size here, but that's also pretty easy for RAM. All right, so next up we have this this story section here, and this looks a bit weird as well. So let's get rid of these problems. For starters, let's make this here a square again, so that it can really fit more text, and so that we don't waste all of this white space that we have here on the side. Okay, it's a big waste of space, and we don't need that on this small screen. So it is the story component, and so let's check it out. All right, so include, respond, and once again, let's do it for the tablet portrait. And starting to increase here the width to 100%. That should help already. So just take a look. And so we start here. And yeah, well, that's not really correct. It should be 90%. Is it 90% actually? Let's take a look. Inspect. Ah, okay, this is happening because of the row. Okay, so the row is taking away that space. But it still looks okay, I believe, actually, all the way until 600. So at 600 is when we should actually start to change things here, because up until this point, it's still okay. So let's just remove some padding here from this, and then we can move on to the phone media query, okay? So the padding that we have currently is, where is it? Yeah, 6 and 9. So we can decrease these values a bit to say 4 and 7. So decreasing them both by 2 RAMs. And yeah, so now we have some more breathing space in here. Okay. And now at 600 pixels, so at the phone, let's do some more changes. So for the phone, we want to get rid of this completely, sort of this weird shape. So set it to 0. And then the same thing for the shape, of course, because right now it has 12 degrees to compensate for that, the skewing that we did there. Now we actually also have to copy this one here. Remember that it's the exact same thing. So this transform has to have the translate and the skew just like this one. But the translate is still okay, but what we need to change is the skew from 12 to 0, right? And then there should be another one somewhere. And where is it? Oh yeah, right here. Well, that's not what I wanted. All right. So that gets rid of the skewing. So, all right, that's better actually. All right, so this looks okay on all of these screen sizes here. So I'm pretty happy with this one. So let's move on. And this one here, to be honest, looks terrible, right? But it shouldn't be all too hard to fix. So let's very quickly do that as well. So the first part is here in the home, remember? So down here in this book section is where most of the layout actually happens. Okay, so let's include or mix in here, respond. And then let's actually take a look and where this starts to look that bad. So in here, it's kind of still acceptable, right? But then it starts to look really bad. And well, we should fix that. Even at this media query here. So the tablet landscape. So tab land. And the main thing that we need to change is actually this gradient here. And what we can do for starters is to simply set this to 70, 70, and then also setting the width of this box where the form is in also to 70%. And that should already increase it and improve the situation. Okay, now one thing that we actually skipped when we designed this card was this height here, okay? So we should have removed that, but I totally forgot. So let's do that now, okay? Don't forget to remove that height. That was just for testing purposes, but for some reason I then let it there accidentally. So let's take a look. So 1210, all right, so that's better, to be honest. And now as we approach the 900 media query, okay, actually this image here is starting to already look a bit weird, so we should fix that. And I'm going to show you how. So what we'll do here is to basically make this image occupying the entire height and not the entire width as it's doing right now, okay? So why is it occupying the entire width right now? Well, that's because of background size 100%. Remember, that's similar to background cover, but it's not really the same, because what this does is to ensure that the image fits the container in the X direction, basically, okay? But what we want right now is really the cover, okay? So I'm going to change that to background size, actually, and cover. And actually, I think that 70 is a bit too much here. So 65, 65, and then down here as well, 65. And now it behaves just as we want it. Okay, so covering the entire element. Okay, and now starting from 900, so from the tablet size, we need to do some more changes. So respond, tab, port, okay, so this background image here is what needs to change, of course. Now we don't want this 105 degrees here. We don't care at all about that. Let's just put any direction, it doesn't really matter. So to right, okay, and now starting from 0 to 100% and no transparent at all. So it will all be covered in white now, okay? That's what we really want. And then the width in here should be, let's actually copy this. Support, and now we want the 100% width. All right. And so that looks pretty good. Not perfect here, so there's some more stuff that we can fix, of course. So let's do that as well. But for this part here, we're good. And so let's now go to the form. So what can we fix? And the first thing that came to my mind was to fix this radio group. So include respond tab port and set it width to 100%, and maybe a margin to the bottom, because otherwise it will be one on top of another. And so yeah, that's better. Give it some more space. And now this looks like a real form to me. Also, I think there's something going on with this here. I think it's 90% width only, if I am not mistaken. So let's copy this. And yeah, that's right. So let's change that to width 100%. And here we go. All right. So this looks pretty good to me. It's not perfect, as I was saying in the beginning, but I don't want to worry all too much about this. I don't want to make it 100% perfect, because this was just to demonstrate you how we actually work with media queries. So I now encourage you to keep working at this to make it really perfect, to change every single detail that could be better. I also want you to test this on real devices if you can. And there's also a cool app that you can test, which is called Sezi, I believe. Okay. Then if you have your page online somewhere, then you can just enter the URL here, and then it will show you the page on a lot of different devices. You can just load this example here. And so this is how it looks like. So you have this page on all of these devices here at the same time, and you can check it out how it looks on all of them. Okay, so Sezi is how it's called. I will also put a link on my resources page. All right, and I have one last challenge for you, which is actually when you hit this button here. Okay, so this is right now the pop-up, and I'm not going to change it because I want this to be a challenge for you. So before moving on, get your hands dirty with this part here of the website and make it completely responsive. You can put the images here on top, for example, or you can put them at the bottom, whatever you like. You're completely free to do it as you wish. Okay, so that's my challenge for you. And after that, we're going to move on to responsive images. Okay, so good luck with that challenge and see you later.